4 spine-chilling, true hotel horror tales. Unexplained secrets revealed, cursed rooms exposed. The Thompsons rolled up to the Grandview Hotel, exhaustion hanging heavy in the air like an unwanted fog. Their hearts were weary, battered by the unending tide of economic despair that had pulled the rug out from under them, leaving them homeless and desperate. Mike, the protective father, felt the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. "This will be a fresh start," he whispered to Sarah, his loving but anxious wife, who could only offer a shaky smile. For their children, Lily and Jack, this one-night escape was a beacon of hope, a flicker of joy amidst turmoil. As they stepped inside, the oppressive atmosphere wrapped around them like a cold, damp blanket. The walls flaked in patches, and the air carried a strange, musty scent that made Sarah's stomach churn. "Maybe it's just old," she murmured, brushing aside her unease. But the flickering lights overhead threw grotesque shadows across the floor, chilling her spine. When night fell, the eerie sounds began. Lily cuddled her stuffed bunny, her small hand gripping the crayon as she scribbled on the hotel-provided notepad. But instead of rainbows and flowers, her drawings took a dark turn, figures with elongated limbs and hollow, silent eyes. "They're my friends," Lily said, her innocent declaration making Sarah gasp in horror. She quickly pushed the drawing away, her heart racing. Jack, oblivious, bounced around the room, suddenly pausing. "Did you guys hear that?" he whispered, eyes wide. They tucked themselves in, but the scratching noises grew louder, echoing from the walls like desperate whispers. "It's just the wind," Mike insisted, though his heart pounded in trepidation. But with every creak of the floorboards, dread built, wrapping its fingers around them. Lurking shadows seemed to flit around the corners of their eyes. Suddenly, Sarah's purse slipped from her hand, only to magically reappear across the room. What was happening? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The ghostly atmosphere thickened when Mr. Klein, the hotel manager, appeared with a smile that twisted uneasily across his face. He casually dropped chilling information. The hotel was shrouded in a legacy of disappearances, guests lost to the darkness that seemed to grip this place like a vice. Lily's drawings, Klein revealed, were not just figments of her imagination. They were the very creatures that plagued the hotel. Mike felt his instinct churn, distrust seeping in as he exchanged wary glances with Sarah. Then chaos erupted. The sound of gut-wrenching screams ricocheted off the walls, sending ice down their spines. Frantic knocks reverberated through the hall as shadows danced menacingly closer. As their grip on sanity slipped, the family's unity began to fracture. What had started as a much-needed break was morphing into a terrifying nightmare. Plagued by fear, they decided to run, but not before a cryptic message appeared on the bathroom mirror. "Stay a while. We can't let you go." Fleeing through the crowded lobby, gripping each other's hands tightly, they spotted Klein again. His unnerving grin sent shivers coursing down their spines. What horrifying truth awaited them at the Grandview? Would they become part of the chilling history that haunted these walls? The Thompsons stumbled into the lobby, hearts racing and breathless terror painting their faces. Crowds around them were not what they seemed, their jovial chatter now a cacophony of high-pitched laughter that twisted into something sinister. The flickering lights above turned the cheerful colors of the lobby into a desolate palette of shadows. "Did you hear that?" Jack whispered, clutching Lily's hand. "It feels wrong." His eyes darted around, absorbing every detail, every flicker of movement that sent his nerves on high alert. "Everyone, stay close!" Mike shouted, his voice trembling despite his attempt to sound authoritative. Each step they took echoed like a hollow drum, resounding through twisted corridors of anxiety. The walls seemed to murmur secrets that clawed at their sanity. Mrs. Henderson, an elderly guest sitting in a worn armchair, turned her head sharply, eyes widening. "They don't let you leave," she rasped, her voice quivering. "Not if you hear it. Not if you see them." Her gnarled hands gripped the chair's arms with a strength that contradicted her frail figure. Mike and Sarah exchanged frantic glances, pulse racing as whispers pressed in from all sides. A chilling breeze swept through the lobby, stirring the air around them like fingers brushing against their skin. "We need to get out of here, now," Mike declared, pushing through the crowd, creating a path through the throng of tortured souls. Lily and Jack followed closely, eyes glazed with fear. Suddenly a figure appeared in front of them. It was Mr. Klein, his smile broader now, eyes glinting with malice under the wavering lights. "Leaving so soon? But the fun is just beginning. You wouldn't want to miss the show, would you?" The crowd around him erupted in laughter that warped into howls, maniacal and hollow. "Step back!" Sarah shouted, her maternal instincts kicking in as panic surged through her. The atmosphere thickened, reversing the notion of safety. Shadows twisted, becoming darker. They pooled around Klein, wrapping him in darkness like a well-fitted cloak. "Run!" Mike yelled, and they broke free, careening through the lobby towards the exit. The doors loomed ahead, like more of a beast, but as they reached out, the air shifted. The doors slammed shut with a deafening bang that reverberated through the hotel. The cold steel left them pinned against the glass, a soundless scream caught in their throats. The faces in the lobby turned towards them, eyes hollow and lifeless. They were sculptures of despair, forever etched in horror. The commotion behind them grew louder as Klein's voice burst through the clamor, smooth and deadly. "You think you can escape? You are part of us now." The shadows curled around him like smoke, reaching for the Thompsons, grasping. Mike took a deep breath, frantically searching for another path. "This way!" He tugged Sarah and the kids, directing them towards a narrow corridor veiled in darkness. The stench of decay filled their nostrils, a palpable fear that constricted their throats. As they dashed forward, walls began to shift, closing in on them. The soft scratching sounds surfaced again, echoing and laughing, a sinister symphony resonating within the confines of their minds. With every step they took, the hotel seemed to come alive with malevolent intent. The laughter morphed into cries that clawed at their sanity. "What do we do? Where do we go?" Jack whimpered. Just then they stumbled upon a door slightly ajar, light spilling out in welcoming warmth. "In there!" Sarah cried, and without thinking they slipped inside. The room felt warmer, but as the door clicked shut behind them, a chill ran down their spines. The light flickered, revealing not a safe haven, but a gallery of horrifying portraits that strained against their frames, faces twisted in eternal agony. Abruptly, the door rattled, and low growls emanated from beyond, mingled with Klein's mocking laughter. Sarah clasped her hand over Lily's mouth, eyes darting around the room. What kind of horrors awaited them now, and how much longer could they hold on before the hotel claimed them as its next victims? The scratching intensified, melding with frantic thuds against the door. "Do you really think you can hide?" Klein's voice called from the other side, chilling their blood. "We'll be coming for you next." What did he mean? In that moment of claustrophobic dread, every heartbeat threatened to break free, and escape felt more far away than ever. The room, once their fleeting refuge, turned into a claustrophobic nightmare, the vivid portraits glaring at them like countless accusing eyes. Each brushstroke seemed to pulsate with wretched emotions, fear, anger, despair, echoing their own rising panic. The air felt thick, impossibly heavy, pressing against them like an impending avalanche. The rattling door intensified like a beast scratching its way in, desperate for a taste of their terror. Mike's pulse raced. He couldn't think straight. He scanned the walls, desperate for an escape route, but they were bare, solid as stone. "We can't stay here," he hissed, eyes darting toward the dim confines of the room. With a shaky breath, he inched toward the door, glancing back at Sarah. "If we stay here, we're dead." He pressed his ear against the cold surface, listening. The growling morphed into a harmony of whispers. Each word dripped with derision, echoing their worst fears. "Open up. We know you're in there." Klein's voice was smooth, syrupy, wrapping around them like a fog. "You can't hide forever." "Maybe we can fight back," Jack whimpered, clenching Lil's hand. "Maybe we could—" "No!" Sarah interjected, her voice rife with urgency. "We can't!" The child's face paled, confusion and terror swirling in his eyes. "But what if—" "Shh!" Mike urged, collapsing into a crouch, motioning for silence, his mind a tempest of ideas. The door shook again, this time a stronger push, the hinges protesting like a wounded animal. They were running out of time. A flicker of hope surged as he spotted a window over the portraits. Faint, but maybe their only chance. "There, I think we can climb out." "Are you crazy?" Sarah shot back, her eyes wide. "What if it's a dread down there too? Better than whatever is behind this door." His despair turned to resolve, and with desperate energy he scrambled to the window. The glass was ice-cold as he pried it open, the sound like shattering glass echoing in the silence. "Quick, let's go!" As he climbed halfway out, he felt the cold grip of hands at his ankles, dragging him backward. "No! No! No!" He kicked and thrashed, adrenaline surging through his veins as the darkness clawed at him with frigid fingers. "Mike!" Sarah screamed, diving to pull him back. But time was ebbing. The door slammed harder, the now relentless animal growling with fervor. A wail joined the fray, a high, keening sound, as if the walls themselves were crying for them to give in. Jack tugged at Lily, heart racing, feeling the weight of impending doom. "We're going to die," he cried. But Lily pressed her small hands against her ears, trying to drown out the hysteria around them. "I can't let them take you," Sarah yelled, finally yanking Mike free from the grip of shadows. They stumbled backward just as the door shattered, flinging shards of wood across the room like daggers. In an explosion of darkness, Klein appeared, surrounded by twisted figures with hollow faces, each an echo of the portraits on the walls, their cries merging with his. "Welcome to the show," he thundered, a malevolent grin stretching wide. "Run!" Mike yelled, his breath labored. They darted towards the window, shoving past the sinister silhouettes. These were no mere spirits. They were the lost, the devoured, victims of this cursed hotel. Just as they reached the open window, sudden laughter erupted behind them, followed by sinister whispers. "You're ours now, forever." The darkness engulfed them, pulling them back, threatening to consume their very souls. The children screamed. Mike pressed them against him, determination flooding through his bones. They would not succumb, not without a fight. With one final push, they hurled themselves through the opening. The rush of cold air sent a shock through them as they fell into the unknown. Would they find freedom or a greater horror waiting below? As they landed hard on concrete, disoriented and gasping for breath, they glanced back at the hotel, a monstrous silhouette against the night, pulsing with ominous energy. They were out, but the shadows writhed, twisting and turning, creating a shape that echoed their worst nightmares. They would soon find out in a far more direct way what the hotel wanted from them. But had they truly escaped, or was this the beginning of something much darker? The chill of the night air bit at their skin as Mike, Sarah, Jack and Lily lay sprawled on the unforgiving concrete. They gasped, not quite comprehending the distance they had just covered or the malevolence that still lurked behind them. The hotel loomed like a predatory phantom, its darkened windows flashing with whispers as if alive, breathing in their horror. "Are we safe?" Jack asked, his voice trembling. Mike forced himself to sit up, scanning their surroundings. Raw panic clawed at him. Shadows danced at the edge of his vision, flickering like candle flames caught in a draught. We need to move," he stammered, pushing himself to his feet, adrenaline overriding the shock. "Where?" Sarah shot back, urgency lacing her tone. They had fled the clutches of Klein and the twisted figures, but freedom was deceptive. The suffocating grip of the hotel still tightened around their necks. "Anywhere but here," Mike insisted, gesturing toward the dimly lit street ahead. "We have to get away from this cursed place, now." Lil clung tightly to Jack's side, her breath shaky. What if they follow us?" Her wide eyes brimmed with tears, a stark reminder of their fragile innocence against the night's terrors. Mike grabbed her hand, squeezing it tight. "We just need to keep moving. Stay close." They stumbled into the street, the cracked pavement stretching before them like a daunting void. An oppressive silence enveloped them, broken only by the distant rustle of leaves. With each step, fear coiled tighter within Mike's chest. Something watched them. "Where do we go now?" Sarah whispered, glancing back over her shoulder, her fear palpable. "Are we even going the right way?" As they hurried forward, Jack spotted a small, flickering streetlight up ahead, its weak glow casting long shadows. "What about there?" he suggested. "We can hide." "Not yet," Mike replied. "Let's just—" A low rumble interrupted his words, echoing from the direction they had come. "Do you hear that?" Sarah hissed, her body tensing. The ground seemed to vibrate beneath them. "Run!" Mike shouted. They sprinted toward the light, adrenaline surging, the shadows stretching out behind them. But panic twisted minds. They didn't notice the ground shifting until it was too late. The pavement beneath their feet cracked and buckled, erupting into a yawning abyss. "Ah, no!" Lily shrieked as she stumbled, falling toward the chasm. Mike dove, managing to catch her wrist just in time, but the force pulled him off balance, and they both crashed down, tumbling towards the edge. "Help!" Jack screamed, reaching for them. With a warrior's grit, Mike gripped Lily tighter, his heart racing. "Get back!" he yelled at Sarah and Jack as he fought to pull her back, panic flaring in his gut. The crevice yawned wider, darkness seeping from the depths like a slithering serpent. "Your hand!" Sarah cried, her voice tight with desperation. As she reached to help, Mike hesitated. Weighing their escape against the chilling call of the abyss, every shadow held whispers of betrayal. "Now!" he urged again, adrenaline coursing through him. Just as Jack lunged, the ground beneath them thundered. They swung on the brink, the narrow edge crumbling more with every heartbeat. A pulse of frantic urgency swelled as they scrambled, the darkness below beckoning with cold indifference. Then came the shriek, a haunting wail that echoed from the depths, a call too familiar. "Run! Don't look back!" Mike's voice echoed out, blending with the rising chaos. But the shadows took form. Twisted figures rising from the crevice, eyes like smoldering coals, laying claim to the very air they breathed. As the ground trembled, Mike's grip faltered, uncertainty gnawing at his core. Had they truly escaped? Or was this a sinister game, the hotel drawing them back deeper into its grasp? When the shadows began to reach for them once more, Mike's heart raced, knowing they were far from out of danger. Just moments away from discovery, he realized the choices he made could determine their survival. Would he let go for the sake of safety, or fight with everything he had? An icy hand grazed his ankle, sending terror coursing through him. In that instant, Mike understood that the fight had just begun. What did the hotel want from them, and what horrors awaited if they fell into the darkness? Lily's scream pierced the thick air, wrapping around Mike like a noose. He could feel the chill of the abyss materializing just inches away, its cold fingers creeping closer to his ankles. A twisted figure emerged from the shadows, and Mike's heart pounded in protest, warning him of the horrors lying in wait. "Hold on, just hold on," Mike shouted, the raw urgency in his voice clawing for strength. He anchored himself despite every instinct screaming to flee. The weight of Lily's small frame pulled him down further, the increasing pressure of fear constricting his lungs. Jack was still reaching toward them, desperation burning in his eyes. "I can't lose you, Lil," he shouted, but his voice trembled. Shadows writhed around them, breathing in sync with the breaking ground, drawing closer to their quaking forms. "Forget about me," Lily cried, her voice breaking. "Just run." "No!" Mike boomed in reply. "I won't leave you." But hesitation was not a luxury they could afford. A bone-chilling wail echoed out from the void, a lament that pulled at the threads of their sanity. Its mournful tone seemed to claw at the raw edges of Mike's mind. It was as if the hotel itself was calling out to them, urging them back to its dark embrace. The thought sent a shiver racing through him, and he felt the pull of the shadows growing stronger. "Take my hand, now!" Sarah yelled, her eyes wide as she edged closer, a flicker of faith igniting within the chaos. Fear draped over her features like a shroud. Time felt suspended, danger mounting with every heartbeat. With a final push, Mike gripped Lily's wrist, adrenaline igniting his resolve. He pulled with every ounce of strength he could muster, while Jack inched nearer, their hands a lifeline. With a final scream of determination from Mike, they surged forward, and the world tipped sideways as they were flung free from the abyss. Gasping, they collided into the unyielding pavement, scrambling to their feet as the crevice gaped behind them, hungry. For a heartbeat they stood panting, the streetlight flickering madly as if caught in indecision. Then, as if sensing their escape, the shadows snapped back like a coiled snake, hissing threats woven into the night. "Go! Now!" Mike urged, pushing them, and they stumbled forward, legs heavy with dread. As they bolted down the street, the wailing grew distant, but not quiet. It echoed like a ghost trailing behind them, filling the alleyways with an ancient fear. They veered around a corner, seeking cover in the dense thicket of trees lining the street. An unsettled sanctuary, shrouded in deeper shadow. "What is happening?" Jack gasped, eyes darting around the blackened trees. He was on the verge of breaking, breaths coming too fast, too frantic. "We need to find somewhere safe," Mike replied, scanning the darkness. Every crack of a branch or whisper of wind made his heart leap. "The hotel isn't just a place, it's a hunt." They crept further into the shadows, pressing their backs against the prickly bark. Mike's pulse raced, a haunting realization dawning. This wasn't just about finding safety. The hotel had marked them, its pursuit relentless. They would never find peace until they solved the mystery, until they understood the horror unleashed upon them. "Do you hear that?" Lily whispered, voice trembling as she strained to listen into the void. A soft hiss floated through the night, weaving into the wind, entangling their fears. Panic twisted Mike's features as the shadows shifted, forming shapes that seemed to pulse with life. "Run! Hide!" Mike commanded despite the knot in his stomach. They peeled away from the trees, darting down a narrow pathway that cut through the cramped neighborhood. Every breath was a race, the air thickening with foreboding, but as they fled, dread seeped into Mike's thoughts. What if they ran into something worse? The path twisted ahead, and just as he turned the corner, a figure lurked, cloaked in darkness, blocking their escape. "Turn back," it whispered, voice like ice etching through their skin. In that moment, a wave of realization crashed over Mike. Not only were they being hunted, but they might have also been the ones who unleashed the horror upon themselves. What had they stepped into, and what waited at the end of this suffocating path? The night held many secrets, and this was only the beginning. The air grew thick with unspoken dread as the cloaked figure stepped closer. Dark fabric billowed like smoke, obscuring its features, but Mike could feel its gaze boring into him, sparking a chill that coursed through every nerve in his body. "Do you understand?" it hissed, the words ghostly and fragmented, like echoes from a dying fire. The shadows danced around it, and Mike's heart raced, thumping like a drum of warning in his chest. "Back away!" Jack yelled, positioning himself protectively in front of Lily, trembling but defiant. "We're not afraid of you!" But Mike could see fear lurking behind Jack's bravado. The figure only smiled in response, revealing a set of crooked, jagged teeth that gleamed in the dim light, a twisted mockery of human expression. "Not afraid. Should you be?" It chuckled softly, a sound that curled around them and made their skin crawl. Mike's breath caught. This was not just a figure, but something far darker, a spectre rooted in the depths of their nightmare. Suddenly the street behind them shuddered. A cacophony of laughter erupted from the shadows, gleeful and warped, as if the very fabric of the night was unraveling. Mike felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. "Keep moving!" he barked, heart hammering, as the desire to flee gripped him like iron chains. They dashed around the figure, pressing onward into the darkened alley, lungs burning with exertion. But every corner they turned felt increasingly familiar, the surroundings looping back on themselves like a gnarled, twisted maze. "What is happening? Why can't we get out of here?" Lily screamed, panic-laced tears spilling over as they stumbled, desperate. Shadows flitted past them, rippling ghosts in the corners of her vision. "Stay close!" Mike shouted, tightening his grip around Lily's hand. Each moment of hesitation felt like an invitation for the darkness to catch up. "We need to find the source, the center. It's all connected." But the more they ran, the more fractured the path became, an endless torment where the echoes of their despair mixed in symphony with the hotel's distant wails. They rounded an especially sharp corner, coming to a sudden halt before an old wrought-iron gate, cracked and rusted, the entrance to a forgotten courtyard. It was overgrown, vines clinging to everything, a wild reclamation of nature against brick and stone. It felt like a trap, a dark promise of secrets held within. "What if the hotel is linked to this place?" Jack whispered incredulously, voice shaking. "This could be the answer." "Or a mistake," Mike replied, glancing over his shoulder toward the encroaching shadows. The hissing was louder now, 1,000 whispers that seduced him with the promise of knowledge, of completion. "Let's just see what's inside, quickly," Lily urged, breathless yet unnaturally eager, as if a pull from the shadows had crafted her decision. They stepped through the gate, hearing it creak ominously, the sound a grim greeting. A cold shiver shot down Mike's spine. Whatever was in here, it felt like an echo from their past, a haunting that was too familiar. As they moved deeper into the cursed courtyard, flashes of memories rose up, familiar faces and laughter twisted into horror and grief. "What is this?" Mike murmured, feeling the walls closing in, fingers trembling at the visions clawing at his mind. But as they stepped further in, enchantment turned to dread, and the shadows began to coalesce behind them, forming shapes that bulged and writhed, eager for their attention. The realization hit like ice water. They had not escaped the hunt. They had merely entered a new chamber of their nightmare. And deep from the hollow of their past, a voice emerged like a serpent, whispering, "You shouldn't have come back." What awaited them further in? The darkness thrummed with anticipation, a promise of terror that hung in the air. They were not alone, and the secrets they sought would demand a hitching price. The courtyard seemed to pulse with life, shadows stretching toward them, hungry and insistent. Mike strained to catch a glimpse of the grotesque shapes forming behind. They distorted like warped reflections on a murky pond, dripping with malice and despair. Each second felt like an eternity, as echoes of their laughter twisted into chilling wails, memories clawing at the edges of his mind. "Do you hear that?" Jack whispered, his bravado faltering, eyes darting nervously through the thickening shadows. The voices. They're not just the wind. Yes, I hear it, Lily gasped, stepping backward instinctively, her back brushing against the cold stone wall. What are they saying? The air pressed heavy against them, a weight of dread crushing Mike's chest. It was as if the courtyard itself was alive, breathing, watching. The shadows writhed, eager to close in, to shroud them in darkness. We need to find something, anything that can help us, Mike shouted, trying to pierce the hollow sounds coiling around them. We can't stay here, Lily hesitated, her wide eyes fixed on the creeping dark. What if we go deeper? She suggested, her voice cracking, but it felt like an invitation, a siren call masking its true intent. No, Jack snapped, panic spiking through him. We should run out, back the way we came. Before Mike could respond, a sound overrode their fears. A low, guttural growl escaped the shadows. It bounced off the stone walls, spinning around them, as if the darkness itself had spoken. The shadows flickered, revealing glimpses of monstrous forms, a twisted visage, and eyes that glowed like dying embers. "Stay together!" Mike yelled, forcing the impulse to bolt down somewhere into the pit of his stomach. They edged deeper into the courtyard. The gravel beneath their feet crunched like bones. Tentative, Mike reached forward, hands brushing against the cold, rough stones that surrounded them. He felt drawn toward a towering, decrepit fountain lost to time, its stone mouth gaping wide like the entrance to a cave. What if it could help us, he ventured, fueling a fragile hope against the dread closing in. Lily moved closer, her curiosity overpowering fear. What if it holds the answers? As they approached, the shadows writhed more violently, almost alive, undulating across the ground. Mike could hear whispers sharper now, twisting into words. "Leave, before it's too late." "Turn back," Jack urged, his brows furrowing in distress. "Just for a moment," Lily insisted, her fingers reaching out toward the dark pool. The surface rippled like disturbed water, showing faces. Faces they knew, eyes wide and pleading for release. "Lily, no!" Mike shouted, grabbing her wrist as a stark jolt coursed through him. A flash of anger and fear collided within him, and he pulled her back just in time. And yet the shadows roared, a cacophony of sound that enveloped them, echoing their pain and disappointment. Dark tendrils lunged forward, almost human-sized shapes emerging from the depths, their laughter manic and layered with grief. Mike stumbled backward, desperation clawing at him. "Run!" He became a blur of movement, grabbing Lily and Jack, dragging them away from the advancing terror that lingered behind. Their legs pumped under them, every heartbeat echoing terror as they scrambled back toward the gate. But it was no longer there, vanished as if swallowed by darkness. "Where'd it go?" Jack shouted, voice cracking with fear. But blackness thickened, creeping over them, rustling like dry leaves, whispering secrets of dark promises. Shadows swirled around, teasing, reminding them of the very fractures in their lives, every secret they carried longing to be unveiled. The voices multiplied, wrapping them in confusion. They were caught in the web of their own making, a curse they didn't even understand yet. "Help us!" Lily screamed, her voice lost in the riptide of grey terror. In that moment, as shadows coiled tighter, the fog lifted just enough to reveal a flicker of light, a doorway glimmering with an ethereal shimmer, even as the weight of despair pressed heavy on their hearts. Were they fated to seek it, or trapped inside the world that wanted to keep them? What lay beyond that shimmering doorway? Did it promise salvation or doom? They had to decide, but the shadows, hungry for their next meal, waited with bated breath. The flicker of light, barely perceptible, danced at the edge of their vision. Hope clashed with fear, creating a tempest of emotions within Mike. "We have to go to it," he urged, his voice a raw whisper threaded with urgency. "What if it's a trap?" Jack countered, sweat trickling down his temples, panic etched across his features. The voices swirled louder, their anguished cries blending with the darkness. It felt as though the shadows themselves were mocking them. "We'll be trapped here if we don't," Mike shot back, trying to pierce through Jack's doubt. Each breath they took felt weighted, heavy with despair. Lily's heart thundered in her chest. The light was enticing and terrifying, a glimmer of hope in a world saturated with doom. "I'll go first," she said, her voice quaking but resolute. Before either could stop her, she stepped forward, her feet crunching over the gravel like brittle bones. The shadows convulsed violently, kicking up a whirlwind of dust and whispers. "Lily, wait!" Mike shouted, reaching for her. But the moment she crossed the threshold into the light, everything shifted. The courtyard seemed to tremble as if it knew she had surrendered to its call. Shadows recoiled, their angry hissing fading to a low murmur, intertwining with the echoes of lost souls. Mike and Jack stood frozen. "Is she okay?" Jack asked, eyes wide, searching for any sign of Lily. The light enveloped her, brightening until it glowed fiercely, illuminating the dark features of the courtyard. Shadows momentarily drew back as if hurt by the brightness. "Lily!" Mike screamed, panic welling deep in his gut. He couldn't let her go without knowing. They either broke free together or succumbed to this darkness. With a deep breath he followed her, heart racing. Each step felt heavier, like the shadows resumed their pull, clinging to him, urging him to stop. But the light ahead promised more than safety. It felt like a sanctuary. He stumbled through, and in an instant the light enveloped him. It was warm, almost alive, and in that moment he breathed. But as the blinding light faded, he didn't find solace. Instead, a different kind of darkness awaited him. The world around was transformed. The courtyard vanished, spiraling into a cold and sterile room, its walls painted an eerie white. The air thrummed with an unsettling silence. A hospital room? Mike's stomach churned. "Lily!" he called out, voice trembling. He felt inexplicably watched, eyes on him from every corner. "Mike, is that you?" Her voice came from behind him, but it sounded distant, muffled. He turned to see her, pale and shaken, her eyes wide with fear. "What is this place?" Jack's voice rang out from another corner. Dread filled the air, wrapping around them like a shroud. The room pulsed with an unseen energy, items strewn haphazardly, as if someone had fled in a rush, desperately escaping the darkness that now had them trapped. The echoes of the courtyard remained, distant whispers clawing at their minds, reminding them they were still ensnared. "We have to find a way out," Mike insisted, voice rising over the oppressive silence. But as soon as he spoke, laughter erupted, a disembodied sound weaving itself through the room. "Flee? There's nowhere left to run," echoed the shadows, their voices taunting, mingling with the sound of twisted laughter. The realization sank like a stone in Mike's gut. The darkness had followed them. They were in a new prison, one crafted from their deepest fears and regrets. They grasped at each other, need for human contact, a last strand of sanity amidst the chaos. The shadows reveled in their distress as the laughter morphed into tortured cries, echoing in their minds. "We can't stay here. We have to find the source of this," Mike shouted, desperation clawing at him. But how? They had no answers, just the burgeoning dread that their past was crawling up to meet them. Shadows swirled, feeding off their fear as the light from the doorway faded, leaving them in near-total darkness. "Whatever happens, we're not going to give in," Lily exclaimed, her voice fierce but quivering. "We're getting out of this together." The laugh echoed again, now sinister, weaving pressure in every corner. "Together, you're already trapped. The shadows watch, always, waiting." Just then, a flicker caught Mike's eye. There, in the corner of the room, a small, jagged mirror leaned against the wall, its surface rippling like disturbed water. "What if?" Mike muttered, staring at the strange reflections, caught between their own distorted faces and something else lurking just beyond, something waiting to be unleashed. Would they dare to confront what lay within? As the shadows encroached, hungry and expectant, their decision loomed like a storm on the horizon, a reckoning waiting to unfold. The mirror shimmered, casting unsettling reflections that felt alive. Mike leaned closer, the distorted shapes warping into something that twisted his insides. Lily's voice broke his focus. "What are you thinking? We need to get out." She tugged at his arm, but he didn't move. There was something in the mirror, something restless and dark that demanded his attention. The shadows moved around them, clawing towards that very spot, drawn to the flickering energy of the reflection. Horror clawed at Mike's chest, but curiosity held him captive. "Mike, please!" Jack's voice trembled, edging on panic. "You can't get lost in that thing." But as he turned to respond, the laughter grew louder, echoing inside his brain, drowning out Jack's voice, distorting the very essence of reality. Disembodied hands reached out from the mirror. Their fingers twitched as if demanding freedom. Mike could feel their desperation, a hunger he couldn't ignore. "What if it's a way out?" he whispered, the thought chilling yet electrifying. "Are you insane?" Jack spat. "Those are not hands, they're shadows, don't you see? This place is manipulating us." The twisted faces in the mirror shifted, momentarily showing clarity, a vivid portrait of the courtyard filled with the flickering light that had initially called to them. "Guys, look!" Mike shouted. The moments hung heavy as Jack and Lily followed his gaze reluctantly. They were captivated, the familiar yet elusive memory of safety precariously close. "We might be able to reach it," Mike urged, his heart pounding fiercely. What was it that compelled him? The spectres in the mirror emitted a swirling energy, promising escape from the prison with its mocking walls. But Jack's fear pressed down. "That could lead us to our doom. We can't trust it. Better than staying here." Mike's resolve hardened. He stepped closer, heart racing as shadows writhed and shrieked, eager to pull him back. "I'm going in." "Don't!" Jack yelled, lunging forward to stop him. It was too late. Mike grasped the jagged edge of the mirror, his fingers brushing against the liquid surface, where reflections warped into a deep void. The instant he touched it, a surge of energy coursed through him, and he was pulled inside, the darkness consuming him whole. He screamed, but it was swallowed by the howling shadows. Suddenly he was not alone. Shapes darted in the abyss, their distorted features fleeting, taunting. Each one whispered his name, beckoning him closer to the center of this chaos. Lily and Jack stood helplessly. The mirror now vibrated, rippling with an intensity that sparked fear. "What do we do now?" Jack's voice was ragged with terror. "We can't just let him go," Lily cried, her face pale. She reached toward the mirror but stopped short as a force knocked her back, an icy wind that whispered threats from the depths of the reflection. "Mike!" she yelled. "Come back!" "I'm here!" His voice echoed weakly from inside, infused with panic. "I don't know where I am! I can see—" But then everything went dark. The whispers escalated into piercing screams, the shadows closing in like a wave. "Get ready!" Jack shouted, shaking. "We have to pull him out!" Without thinking, he lunged forward, grasping Lily's arm. "On 3! 1, 2, 3!" They both dove for the mirror, willing to risk it all. As they fell into the abyss, they screamed in unison, joining Mike in the swirling darkness. In an instant they spiraled through the void, amid haunting laughter and pulsating whispers, their bodies twisting in a kaleidoscope of agony and fright. Mike's anguished face appeared and vanished, links of their existence tethered in shadows. "Where are we going?" Lily's voice trembled, her eyes wide with fear. "Deeper," came Mike's strained reply. "We have to find the light." But just as hope rekindled, a sinister cackle rang out. "You think escaping the darkness will be so easy? You belong to us now." Suddenly, a bright flash erupted, blinding their senses for a split second. When they could see again, everything had shifted. They found themselves in an abandoned hallway, the air thick with dust. The walls felt alive as they closed in, and Jack whispered, "Where are we now?" At the end of the corridor, a door loomed, edged in shadow, and behind it a metallic clank echoed ominously. Would it lead to salvation or further darkness? Lily hesitated, dread curling in her gut. What if it's another trap? She murmured, but the choice was theirs to make. Time was running out. On 3, Mike said, steeling himself. 1, 2... And just then the laughter returned, echoing off the walls. They'll never escape, it sneered. Are you ready to face your true selves? As the shadows breathed deeply around them, they took a collective breath, and the door creaked open. What awaited them on the other side? As the doors swung open, a rush of cold air surged through the hallway, wrapping around the Thompsons like icy hands. They stood frozen, staring into a vast chamber that shimmered ominously in the dim light. Each shadow seemed to stretch and shift with intent, whispering secrets that sent shivers racing down their spines. "Are you ready?" Mike's voice quivered, a mixture of courage and fear. The hallway had been their refuge, but now it felt like a grave devoid of safety. They stepped through the threshold, the stale air laden with the weight of despair. The enormous chamber opened up, revealing walls draped in dark velvet, the floor covered in a thick layer of dust that hadn't been disturbed for years. In the center of the room stood a giant mirror, an ornate piece framed with twisted vines, its surface rippling as if alive. "This must be it, the source," Jack murmured, eyes wide with apprehension. "I think it's a portal," Lily breathed, staring into its depths where shadows thrashed and wriggled, calling to them with bedazzled hues. It felt both alluring and terrifying. But as they drew closer, the whispers morphed into anguished cries, pulling at their minds and hearts. "You cannot turn back now. You belong to us," echoed the haunting sounds, a reminder of everything they had encountered and endured. Fear welled in Mike's chest, but determination surged through him. "We can't let it have us. We need to face it together." Lily clenched her fists, resolve mixed with fear. "Together," she echoed. Jack, though trembling, nodded. "Yeah, we can do this." But as they stepped closer, the room trembled, shadows reaching out like clawed fingers. "This is the moment," Klein's voice called out, slicing through the cacophony of whispers, sounding sharper, more defined now. He emerged from the depths of the shadows, his dread-filled smile plastered across his face. "You've come to play at last." "Get away from us!" Mike shouted, stepping forward like a lion defending its pride. "Play!" Klein sneered, shadows swirling around him. "This has never been a game. You are intertwined with this hotel, rippling through its history. Accept it." The room vibrated, colors swirling, shadows twisting and curling in delight. The essence of their fears condensed into reality. Every regret, sorrow, every frustrated wish took form around them. "Mike, fight it!" Lily urged, her voice cracking under the pressure of the encroaching darkness. With every ounce of strength, Mike faced the mirror, determined to shatter the illusion. "We are not yours," he yelled, and suddenly a flicker of light surged from within, breaking through the shadows. "We are a family." "Family?" Klein laughed, a cruel sound resonating in the room. "You truly think that will save you? Love cannot protect you here." But as the shadows lunged, engulfing them with anguished howls, a warmth spread through Mike. He felt Lily's small hand in his, the weight of Jack's presence just behind him. This was the power of their bond. "Hold on!" Mike screamed, and in that instant they clenched hands tightly, channeling their collective strength. A pulse of radiant light exploded from the core of their unity. It countered the darkness, the warmth of their love sparking an eruption of radiance. The chamber roared with competing forces as magic clashed against malevolence. Shadows writhed, pushing forth with fury, but the Thompsons stood firm. "We are strong. You can't tear us apart." Emboldened, they screamed in unison, fueled by their fears, memories, and love, a harmony that surged like a battalion against the night. The shadows hissed, recoiling from the light, Klein's mocking grin now tinged with rage. "You think you can escape your past? But with that final plea, the mirror shattered, sparkling shards of darkness that reflected every truth they grasped. As their surroundings began to dissolve, they pushed forward with fierce strength and conviction, casting off the tendrils that reached for them. In a blinding whirl of light and thrashing shadow, they were sucked into the mirror. What awaited them? An endless tunnel, swirling with layers of light and dark. They held tight to each other, anchoring themselves against the tempest of the unknown. Suddenly, a flash of blinding sunlight greeted them, and they landed with a thud on soft grass. They blinked against the bright warmth, sprawling outwards, free of the hotel's grip. "Is it over?" Jack gasped, staring at the sprawling blue sky overhead. "I think we made it," Mike replied, heart pounding in relief. The air felt lighter, filled with the perfume of wildflowers and open space, not tainted by shadow. "We took it back!" Lily exclaimed, finally letting out a small laugh, tears spilling down her cheeks, relief washing over her face. "Together, always," Sarah added, bringing them into a tight embrace. But distant behind them, the shadows flickered and darted back toward the hotel, eager to reclaim what was lost. "Forever bound to the hotel," Klein's voice echoed in the wind, fading as he retreated. This was their freedom. But the story of Hotel Grandview echoed still in the corners of the memories they carried. "Can we leave it all behind?" Jack asked, eyes darting toward the fading echoes. "For as long as we stand together, yes," Mike affirmed. And as they held hands, gazing into their bright future, they knew that love and unity had conquered the darkness that once threatened to consume them, leaving behind the shadows of the past. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the whispers of the hotel beckoned, a reminder that some stories never truly ended. Now it was time for you to join the journey. You need to subscribe now to catch what comes next. Smash that like button now to help us grow and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your theories and reactions. What do you think happened to the hotel? And don't wait even one more second. Share this with at least 5 friends who dare to face the darkness with us. Let's prove that we're united against the shadows.